Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. Welcome to this masterclass, this F4S masterclass for Leeds. My name is Sherry Coutu, and I'm delighted to be here with you on International Women's Day, which is a very special day. There are a few different parts to this very short half an hour session. One is we're going to talk a little bit about the fastest growing businesses run by women in Leeds. We're focusing on fast-growing businesses because these fast-growing businesses drive the economic growth of your cities, but they're often invisible. So we're helping to make invisible visible for you. The reason that's important is, on average, new enterprises hire 4 times more people than the big companies that you probably have heard of. And also for those people who work at small sort of scale ups and the high growth companies, or not yet big companies, often the people love working for them. So you get a great combination of people loving to buy their stuff because it's, quite frankly, better than what else is on the market, and the people who work for them love it. So as students who may eventually want to work for a company, these are good to get to, very good to get to know. We would love every teacher and every student to be able to name the business leaders in your city who are growing growing the economy. On average, the scale-up businesses are growing 29 times faster than the economy. So they really are, these businesses, these scale-up businesses are again really, really important for all of them. So part 2, we are going to have Rosie talk to us about her business and particularly how maths has helped her in it, and maybe how some of the things you look for in colleagues. We are also going to have Mansi talk to us. Mansi is a current student from Leeds University doing a master's degree in economics, and we're going to have a conversation and try to go through what drives our what drives our careers and what that looks like. Just going to start a little bit with Leeds, and again, here in Leeds there are 24 businesses with more than 10 million in turnover, which is great, where they're growing very, 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 very fast. We're excited about that. There's a whole bunch of professional services ones, like the one that Rosie is running, and there's quite a lot of leisure and entertainment and technology businesses. So all sorts of businesses can grow quickly. They don't have to be tech or AI. They can be food. They can be any type of businesses. As long as there are customers for them, then there are usually entrepreneurs and business people that want to figure out how to help with that. So I'm going to start out with Rosie. And Rosie, you're an actuary, and I'd love to ask you about how your career has developed. And when you were 11, did you think that you would be doing what you're doing today? And what in heaven's name do you do every day? Because I have no idea. I'd love to hear it. And I think you also chair. I think you also do some other things outside of. You have some other outside interests as well. So how is it when you work that you can also have other passions, and how do you work that into into your life? And if you could talk for maybe 5 or 6 minutes, and then we'll go into the Q&A. And Anna, I can see I'd love to hear your questions as well. Thank you.
No problem. So I definitely didn't know that I wanted to be an actuary when I was 11, and I don't think many 11-year-olds do. I've got an 11-year-old, and he definitely doesn't know what he wants to do other than play football and play Fortnite. But I guess what I did know, I did enjoy maths. I didn't think I was very good at it. I wasn't always top set maths. Certainly as I was coming into high school, I don't think I was seen as, the person that was best in maths at my class. But I did enjoy that you have a puzzle and get to the end and try and get to the right answer. And I do think it's really easy for children to tell themselves that they're not good at maths, because it can be, you get things wrong. And in maths, you do get things wrong because things are either right or wrong. So you get to the end and sometimes you've got the right answer and sometimes you've got the wrong answer. And that doesn't mean that you're bad at maths because you get the wrong answer quite a lot. So I do think I told myself that I wasn't particularly good at it, but I did enjoy it. I got to 16 and chose my A-levels, and I did choose maths, but I chose probably an interesting combination of, I did maths, but I also did geology, which I quite enjoyed, and I did English and history. There weren't that many girls in my A-level maths group. And again, I still told myself that, I enjoyed maths, but I thought I probably wasn't that good at it. I applied to do an English degree and I got my offers back, and I basically had a bit of a wobble about it and thought, actually, I don't quite know why I'm applying to do English, because it's maths that I enjoy doing. I can pursue English and history in my own time. I can continue to enjoy books and literature, but actually I think I might, careers wise, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I thought it might be something that potentially wasn't a creative job. And I was concerned I was starting to go down a path of, doing an English degree that might take me to careers that actually I thought might not interest me. But I was definitely kind of feeling my way as I went along. I didn't have a clear view of what I wanted to do, but I did end up switching my degree. So I had to go back to all my universities and say, oh, I'm really sorry, I applied for this English degree, but actually I've decided I want to do maths. And I got some offers through for maths instead, and I went to Newcastle University to do a maths degree. And turns out, I am quite good at maths. I was capable of doing the degree. I was worried. I continued to worry about my ability in maths, but actually, I really enjoyed my maths degree. I did work hard, but came out with a first in maths from Newcastle. Went to the careers library back in the day when we didn't use the internet that much, literally sat with a big book of careers looking for careers where I might be able to use my maths degree, but didn't really, again, bit blindly looking for things, didn't really know what that even meant. Did discover there was a job called an actuary where I thought I could use my maths day to day. Went along to a few careers fairs, and there was a couple of companies there that employed actuaries. So I went off and applied for various graduate jobs, and ended up working for a very, very large company called Mercer. Thousands of employees, global company, run mostly out of the US, but working in Leeds, in an office in Leeds, just near the train station in Leeds. And I continued to do professional exams, so that was more maths again. I did enjoy it. I passed my exams and I qualified about 5 years later, a bit like accountancy exams. People probably haven't heard of actuaries. You've probably heard of accountants, similar kind of professional exams that you do alongside your job. But although Mercer, great company, big company, it wasn't where I wanted to be. I did want to work for somewhere smaller. I then actually went to another insurance company, worked there for a while, but did eventually end up where I am now. So a firm that still, I am an actuary. I'll explain what an actuary is in a minute, but it's a partnership firm. It is smaller, although actually we have grown so much, over 10% for many years. So actually it's now 1,700 people in the UK, but it's a UK partnership firm. I am a partner. I own a little share of that business. And again, still based in Leeds. And exactly as you said, Shelley, I absolutely love working for a company where I feel in control of the success of it. And it is still a growing, continues to be a kind of double-digit annual growth business. So actually, what is an actuary? I should have explained that. An actuary is somebody who basically puts a value on risk. But actually, what I do day to day is I look after pension schemes. So pension, if you talk to, I guess, the people here, that people's grandparents or great grandparents, when you stop working, you will need to have an income when you're older, and that is called a pension. And I make sure that companies set aside enough money now to pay for pensions when people retire. So that's where the maths comes in. We have to value how much those benefits will cost when people get to retirement, and we have to estimate how long people will live to do that. So I do still use maths day to day. I use less of it than I did when I first qualified and when I was doing my professional exams, but I do still use my maths. It's actually turned into a much more kind of people-based job than I expected. I actually spend most of my time speaking to people who have these pension schemes and helping them with their pension scheme problems. But I do still use maths on a daily basis.
Can you talk about your, you mentioned your sort of communication skills. Is this verbal or written? Is one more important than the other? And also,
yep,
and you also mentioned you help them solve problems.
Yeah.
And is it your verbal skills or your communication skills that help you solve those problems, or the math skills, or some combination?
Yeah, okay. So definitely a combination of the two. So the maths is, I guess, like the bedrock. It gives you the answers, but it's interpreting that maths that's actually the more interesting bit. And yes, there are quite a lot of written communication. So we have quite a lot of reports that every scheme needs to have, every pension scheme has to have certain required reports. So there are reports there, but actually the verbal communication is the most important bit. So I can quite often send out, a 70-page report, but the important thing is, as my boss used to say to me, what's the story? I don't want to hear about the 70 pages. I want to hear, 2 minutes of what's this actually mean for me? What's it mean for my business? How much money is this going to cost me right now? How much is it going to cost me next year? And the 70-page big report is important and it's required by law, but the important thing is turning up to the meeting and really explaining it in human terms to somebody who doesn't do this day to day. So I'm often speaking to the person who runs a company. They don't do the maths. They don't look after pension schemes day to day. This is just one part of their job. And it's remembering that actually you've got them for 1 hour. They're going to go off and do something else for the rest of their day. You need to explain this in simple terms. This is not their day job. It's my day job. So interpreting it in a way they understand is a really important part of the job.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. I might turn to Mansi now, if I may, and definitely keep on the line, Rosie, because we're going to have a conversation. Mansi, you are currently a student at University of Leeds, and you're doing a master's in economics. Tell us a little bit about, but you and the program that you're in required math in order to get into it. But talk a little bit about your career journey. And I know you're at a slightly earlier stage than Rosie, but very relevant for anybody who's 11 to 16 at the moment as well, because you're closer. And what did you do before you started doing this degree? And when you were 11, what did you think you might do?
Um, Actually, when I was 11, I thought I would be a gynecologist because my parents are into medicines. They are dentists, and my parents, like my grandparents, they were also like professors and stuff. So nobody was in mathematics at all. Even my sister didn't do it. So basically, I was doing something really different altogether. So I didn't realize it at 11. I was like fascinated with science at that time. But yeah, when I started to learn maths as in general, like, and to day basis, I was so fascinated like how you use it in your daily lives actually. Like unconsciously you are doing maths in your own realm. When Because I used a strategy when I wanted to buy something, I used to ask my mother like, what is your, when we used to go to the market, and I used to ask, what is your budget, like what are you going, what's going to be your budget for the whole shopping thing. And then when I wanted to get something, I used to like minus the whole thing, and then I had like an amount left. And if like it used to come into that amount, I used to ask my mother, can I buy this? And then she said no. I was like, you have the money to buy it for me, why can't you just buy it? So that's how I use it as a tactic basically. So other than that, I was a sales associate for a year. Basically my main aim to do that was, I was doing it with side by side with my bachelor's actually when I was in my last year of undergrad, because I wanted to know, because I did my bachelor's also in economics, so I wanted to know like whatever I'm grabbing as a theoretical knowledge, is it actually being implemented in the real world or not. So I wanted to study the market at it really deep meaning, like deepening it. So I started as a really as a retail store, so a sales associate. So it's like you communicate with the customers itself, you convince them, you do the negotiations, you see how at the supply workers also, you see how everything works, how the the output input comes in, and how things goes on, how the pricing takes place. You learn everything over there at like a very ground level. So I wanted to actually learn then that how the actual market works. So
Okay.
that's what I realized. Yeah.
And you're at uni now, and we've got Rosie, who's an example of an actuary. Do you think you might be an actuary when you finish, or do you aspire to? Do you still want to be a gynecologist, or do you think you might end up doing something slightly different. Be interested to hear where you think you might be headed.
Yeah.
Bearing in mind that the average person has 25 different roles between high school and retiring when they do need a pension, and usually 7 different career themes. So the prime message is it really doesn't matter what you start with, because there's likely to be a number of different things that you will do. But what do you think you might, say 5 years time, what do you think you might be doing, and maybe even forecast 10 years time what you might be doing?
Actually, I have learned in my master's as well, like predicting and interpreting. Like, I like it a lot, like analyzing numbers. And when I heard what actuary is, I was like fascinated. Like, I'm learning it right now, so I can also do it. But my main aim is to become a research analyst, actually. But I would keep like actuary as in my mind as well.
And a research analyst, tell me what that means. I'm sure I didn't know what a research analyst was when I was 15. So what does one of those do? And why would anyone want to do that?
Um, it's what I learned is when I was in my undergrad, I realized that whenever you want to go, you are interested in something, you want to go deep onto the root, until the root you hit it, right? So research analysts actually do that. Whenever they don't get what they really want to hear, they look into all the papers, they look into whatever research actually has been done, and then they look into the raw data. Actually, we just like go through all the data we are given, and then we we interpret it in our terms, and then we also give out our own the papers. So we actually basically understand the what is going on in like actual sense, and then make it a little bit easier for like people who don't actually know what is going on. We basically make a whole diagram, and then people like understand it through graphical meanings. So it was very fascinating for me how like you take a cause, and then you learn it through numericals and how actually it's working, and then you put it into a really simple graph which like everybody can understand, like histograms and stuff. We learned it at like 10 years of age or 11 years of age, and you can like see what's going on in your actual world. So that's how I fascinated with research analysts.
That's great. Thank you. Anna, did you want to, can I invite you to ask a question or make a contribution, or
Yeah, absolutely. Don't mind. I'm just taking notes on all of the really interesting things everyone's saying. I really liked the detail about, you learn about histograms in, in your kind of like stat side of things in your year 6 or whatever. And, it has a practical purpose. That's always really incredible to hear about. Yeah, I mean, what would you, I guess either of you say for somebody who's considering whether or not to continue with maths? What would kind of be your, I guess, input to how do they make that kind of decision? What kind of things should they consider? That side of things. Whether they want to continue with maths beyond. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. You need to enjoy. You need to have some enjoyment for it, but don't convince yourself that you need, that you can't do it. I'd definitely say that. I think it opens up really wide career paths. There are lots of careers out there which maths would help you with. If you think about the analytical tools it gives you, there are lots of jobs where that would be useful. I think I wish I'd done more sciences as well, a bit like Mansi was just saying about, science. Science again opens up so many careers, and I do think, if you've got some aptitude for maths and sciences, they do open up an awful lot of careers. Doing art subjects, don't get me wrong, I loved my art subjects as well. I loved English and history, but I suspect the career options open to you if you keep doing maths and science are probably wider than with art subjects. It's not anything against art subjects, but I do think there's a lot of careers that you are ruling out if you stop studying maths and science too early.
I think that
Also, sorry, I would like to add a point where Rosie also said when she was speaking that don't lose hope when you get questions wrong, because everybody does. Don't lose your hope, because you don't have to lose your confidence because you're not getting a question right. It's not about the question coming out to right, but it's about the concept. Are you getting it or not? That's the main point. Don't remove yourself thinking that, okay, I can't get the answers correctly or not, because every step you will fail, because we all know that success comes after you have a lot of failures. So push yourself a little bit, because even I realized it when I was in my undergrad, because I had like social sciences also as my subject, economics, and I had maths. So even I was facing those issues, like, should I go for arts, should I go for public administration, should I go for like economics or maths, where should I go? But when you think like, um maths as a subject, it's like basically about concepts, it's not about getting every answer correct. Nobody does it correct at the first step, so don't get discouraged because you're getting questions wrong, answers wrong.
I think also for me, and I go back to the scientific method of testing hypotheses. You know, not getting something right, it just means that you need to do it again and you need to tweak something. And you will have learned, during that, during that experience. And I think both of you have spoken about problem solving. And what I love, in that is when you leave school and start thinking about what you're going to be doing, you are not alone, because there are lots of people around you in your community who will be excited about helping you solve, overcome whatever barriers you've encountered. And what I have loved and enjoyed in business is working with people from all sorts of backgrounds. Some of them are brilliant at writing. I'm pretty okay at pattern recognition and sort of trends and maths. Writing is really difficult for me. But surrounding myself with people who are awesome at writing is brilliant. They can't necessarily see the pattern, and together you can achieve some absolutely extraordinary things, which again uses different sort of superpowers from people, and it's a team that matters. Rosie, I wonder if you want to talk to that just at a moment. I know you said you were writing reports, but you talked about the story. Talk about some of the other people that work in your company, and maybe an actuary company has a lot of people who have maths backgrounds, but probably not all of them do. Talk a little bit about.
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, we're not a firm that just have actuaries, because actuaries on their own would just sit there doing maths all day, and that wouldn't necessarily achieve what we need to for our clients. So we have very large pension administration function actually, which has a very successful apprenticeship program. And that has been a really interesting kind of new route for us to recruit from. So having school leavers join us so it's basically making sure these pensioners actually get paid. So there are lots of things that need to happen in the background to make sure people actually get their money in the bank account each month, and that's the most important thing when you're looking after a pension, that people actually get that pension each month. And that's not just maths, that's there's IT systems in the background, that's extremely important. There's people making sure the numbers are going in the right places in all the systems in the background. There's writing to pensioners when they ask us questions about their benefits. There's speaking to people on the phone. So we deal with a lot of people who are at sometimes upsetting points in their life. We're dealing with people who are potentially going through divorce, dealing with their pensions, who are sometimes in ill health. And obviously when people die and their pension stops, and so their wife or husband has to call us up and tell us that their wife has died. So customer care is a huge part of what we do as well. So it's absolutely not just maths, and the apprenticeship program has been a huge success, and we're really proud of seeing those school leavers come directly from school and grow their careers with us.
Yeah, I love the articulation of, again, your passion for helping people once they are no longer working, and let's say they're sort of 65, 70, or however old you are when you choose to stop working these days. And maybe some of them haven't thought that much about how much money they would need when they stopped working. And so again, part of what, one of the benefits and outputs of your industry is helping people throughout their lives save to make sure that they don't find themselves in trouble later on in life. And again, for those who just haven't thought about it, it's a critical industry. And love hearing your passion about, this is what I do. I'm in the pension industry. Well, what does that mean? It means I help people be able to fund their lives when they're retired, and that's something that I think everybody can understand and be passionate about. I can see that we're coming up on near the end of our time together. So I'm going to turn to each of you, Rosie, Mansi, and Anna, and I'd love to hear what's your single piece of advice to someone right now if they're thinking about their career and or what their next steps would be after school. And I'll start with you, Rosie.
Okay. Gosh, it's a big question. Look for something that you enjoy, but kind of think high. Aim high. You can probably do something harder and more exciting than you think you can.
I think that's great advice. Thank you. Mansi?
I would say that I also learned this recently, that learn from others' experience as well as your own. You need to grab knowledge from wherever you can. Don't miss an opportunity to learn from others' experiences. And that's why it's said, like, God has given us 2 ears and one mouth. Speak more, less, listen more. That's what I said.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Anna, what would be your advice be?
Yeah, I think just to be open to things that you might not have expected. One of the, there's a stat for it, but basically the jobs that you're hearing about when you're 11 to 16 might not be the jobs that are even out there by the time you are, 20, 21, 22 graduating. So they're just keeping your ear out, keeping your eyes out for what's going on in industries perhaps that you're interested in. So, I had an education background. I would have never predicted that educational technology would be as, massive as it is now. I thought, oh, you have to be a teacher. Oh, wow, there's AI now. That definitely wasn't anywhere as popular like 3 years ago, even when I graduated undergrad. So yeah, keeping your mind open, but also knowing that the best thing for you might be there in a few years. It might be there right after you graduate. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think it often I'd say it keeps on getting better. And if you start something and you don't love it, there's nothing that means that you shouldn't change. I think my first role was as a computer engineer, sort of designing software, and I wasn't particularly good at it. So I moved on to being an architect, and I was actually pretty good at being a systems architect. And then I found myself running companies, first in the financial services, but now in the learning world. And I never would have predicted when I was younger that I would even be an engineer, or that the ability to spot patterns in numbers would be helpful to me. But it certainly has been, and it's led me to all sorts of paths which are fabulous. So we would love every teacher and student in Leeds to be able to name business leaders like Rosie and like Mansi, and who are really driving the economic growth in your city, and also understand what they do and why are they excited about it, and then look with enthusiasm and excitement about the prospects of what they may do once they finish school, and either be an apprentice or go to university or jump straight into a company. But there's one thing that I'm certain is that you can't really make a wrong step, and that if you don't like your first one, just make another one and keep on going. But very happy International Women's Day to all of you. I love the prospects of us making the world what we want it by chasing our passions, and look forward to seeing what you will make the world in coming years, and wish you all the best. If you're a teacher and you want to talk to more people like Rosie and others in Leeds and Mansi, just click that button and ask. We're here and happy to come into your class to talk at any time. Thank you very much. Take care.